back.
Yeah, mic check, mic check, mic check. Hey, man, I'm not even going to turn the camera on yet. If you're watching on YouTube, I'm going to let that sit for a little bit. If you're listening, I hope you feel the vibes. If I had a production team, I would be dropping Funk Master Flex bombs all over this intro right now. Funk Master Flex.
Let them know.
Why we're here today, man. This is a special episode of Kicking the Real podcast. I'm your host, Andy Diosa. You know what? I don't even want to do the regular intro. This is a special case. I'm not even going to treat this like it's a regular episode. This is a victory lap episode. This is an episode that I needed to do. And if you're listening closely to the intro episode of this podcast series, I mentioned a few names and I said this could be foreshadowing because in the future, you might see some of these people on this podcast. Today, we're bringing out full circle only because the Boston Celtics are NBA champions. Banner number 18 is on the way to Causeway Street. And today I have a special guest that I will explain how this all ties in for sure. But my brother, Ben Fountain, from all the way from Massachusetts himself, man. Thank you for coming through the Kicking with me. How are you feeling?
I appreciate it. I feel great. You know, when you sent me the sound the alarm to get this going, you know, I've seen who you had on the podcast. You know, you got your Messi Mania coverage, you got your MLS guys, you got the OG Max, and I guess I'm like the senior Boston correspondent nowadays. But you know, I'm great. Things can't be better right now. Boston's got their title, and this one just feels sweet for so many ways that we can get into it. I'm excited to talk about it.
Yes, sir, man. It's amazing to have my brother Ben on. This is a flashback right here for anybody that knows this has been tapped into what I've been doing for years. Ben is somebody that's been alongside me since I started doing this sports thing. I honestly one of the people that really pushed, motivated, and convinced me to keep doing it when I was in college. Shout out to the Suffolk Voice. Ben
Viva La Voice, baby.
Yes, sir. Viva La Voice. That was our online newspaper in college, and Ben was my editor-in-chief. And although I caused trouble in good ways, Ben always pushed me to keep doing it. And I'm glad that he did. I always tell him I'm appreciative of that. But we always had these conversations and ideas back in the day. Shout out to Suffolk Free Radio, talking basketball on the radio there and just doing a bunch of different things in the sports world there. So I thought it just was perfect to bring it back, man. This is like Suffolk Free Radio all over again. Ben and I kicking it, talking about the Celtics. And this time we're going to be talking you know what I mean? Because the Celtics are the champions.
I know the production value is low, but you might need to get a censor button because we're going to be talking that smack. It's just surreal to kind of get this one in. And, you know, before we get into it, you know, I'm glad to see, you know, your hustle and grind and what you're doing and you're following your passions and you're finding your niche. And I'm glad you're going through it. And, you know, you got the power of Apple now behind you and, you know, you're only going up from here. So
appreciate that, man. We're just having fun with it. And that's why I told people from the beginning, this is why I want to do the podcast, just to have another outlet, just to have fun. And it really is the essence of what I do with my friends and people and talk and kick it and talk sports. So it really is just, if you know me, nothing really out of the ordinary. It's more so fun than anything. And people always ask me, how's the podcast going? I'm like, it's literally just like a fun thing to have, to be able to bring people on and talk about what I want to talk about. So like I mentioned, today is the perfect one because it's the Boston Celtics episode. This is a victory lap episode. I think this is episode number 8, but I can't even think about that right now. All I'm thinking about is what just happened on Monday. Banner 18 is on the way. The Boston Celtics, once again, are NBA champions. In case you hadn't heard, I just wanted to remind you that the Boston Celtics were NBA champions. They took down the Mavs. They obliterated the Mavs in 5 games. Probably should have been a sweep, but I think they were trying to go back to Boston and win. But anyway, went through the Pacers. Yep. They beat the Cavs up. They beat the Heat up. And this is kind of where I want to start. I mean, obviously, I want to talk about the importance of getting over the hump, right? Because I think the pressure had been on. I mean, the pressure is always on in Boston to win championships because certain cities bring that out of you. And the way that they built this team and drafting Brown and drafting Tatum, and it goes so much further back than that. And we could get to that later. But just the importance of getting the hump and finally putting it all together where, you know, a few years ago, they were there against the Warriors. They found out what it was to lose. And they've still, you know, year after year gone through it, faced some incredible competition in the East, even starting with LeBron and going through all the way Kevin Durant and we can name all the names off. But this is the culmination of what they've been waiting for. So just the importance of getting over the hump. What is that like? Because that to me is where you have to start with all of this.
I mean, it's huge, right? Like they've been told from jump that they could not do this, right? The only comparisons I were really hearing for a while with this duo was like the Trailblazers back in the 90s when it was Clyde Drexler and them, where they got to the finals, but they just got beaten by superior teams and superior people like Michael Jordan. So for this duo, and specifically this duo, and this is the best part about all of this, is that we were told that these two could not do it together, that their skill sets were similar, that they were two alphas that could not really play together, and that they really needed to be in their own ecosystems to really thrive if they wanted to win a title together. I've never believed that with this duo. Like, they never gave that, right? So I could sit there and be like, this is what everyone, when you talk about hypotheticals, those are two people that you build long, lanky, all around, jack of all trades, master of none type people that you could build your team around. And if you had them, and they had the mindset that you could win and be sustainably good, and they were, right? Like, I think the biggest thing is that everyone's looking for instant gratification, and they went through everything. Like, it's not just, getting to the Eastern Conference Finals. They've defeated defending champions in the playoffs. They ended Toronto's reign. They ended Milwaukee's reign. And not only ending Milwaukee's reign, but ending it when they were up 3-2. Right? So, like, they've been put through the burner. And I think people kind of remember the hell that was last year when, the nasty man kind of left the coaching staff in a bit of a disarray. And you could really see the difference between talent and then talent that got direction. And last year was very clear that they just did not have the direction. They did not have the message. They couldn't get that unity. And then this year, now that they had a full camp in there, they could kind of go that direction. And even still, they still had some variables up to the last minute with getting a Drew Holiday a day before the season starts. Like, you're not even getting a group of people that could really mesh into a full training camp. You get KP in, sure, but Drew, who is really going to be that mesh, trying to weave him in, and how they were able to do so while still winning at a high level very early on was impressive. And it told me a lot to be like, okay, this is something here. That's a start to be like, all right, the leads that, you live by the three, die by the three. I think when you have that many shooters out there, you're getting open looks. Like, it's not like they're putting up 43s and like 20 of them are just awful heaves, right? Like, you're getting, like, you can nitpick some, sure, like some heat check threes, some sidestep threes from Tatum, who's known to do those, or even like the ones that always get me going sometimes are like those, the transition threes with like 22 seconds on the shot clock. You're just like, can we just get into the offense? Let's see some no, just chuck. Okay, fine. Like, if that's the style you want to play. But we're talking maybe about, out of that shot diet, like 20% of those shots that I'd be like, nah, the rest they're getting good looks. And like, if you're getting good looks, you've seen it now, and it's been sustainable throughout the season. And so people, I guess, just kind of were just like, no, it's not sustainable, it's not effective, but they're open looks.
Yeah.
And they're finding that.
I'm really glad. Sorry, it's jump in there real quick. I'm just really glad they didn't change that, because I still remember back years ago when people used to hit on LeBron for not going up against 2 or 3 people. Instead, right, he would kick it to the open person. Like, that's the right basketball reach. Right. Shoot it. That's what you're supposed to do as a basketball player.
Yeah, it's the I don't want to say Mamba. It started with MJ first, with this virus of just being like a superhero that destroys all, that to go up against these teams. But like, the right play is always to get that look on that open guy. And then Jordan did it too. Like, everyone wants to talk about Jordan winning 6 titles. Kerr's hit his biggest shot based off of Jordan. Paxson hit his big shot off there. But everyone thinks of like this dominant one player that does it all. It's a team. Absolutely. And especially if you look at the Celtics history, it's always been great teams. So you get just it hurts because I'm like thinking of Marcus, because I'm still convinced that like we could have done it with Marcus. And maybe we'll talk about this more with Drew as well. But just like, we still had Marcus in a way this season. I think people were just always on that 1-for-1 transaction with being like, we take Marcus out, we got Drew in. We still had Marcus. That was Derek White. Derek White pretty much had redundant skill sets with Marcus, which kind of made it a little tougher when those droughts would happen, when those threes would kind of go away. Because Derek's kind of gotten that green light that Marcus always had. Like, Derek's getting up 10, 12 threes a game. And I'm like, that's kind of surprising that he's just chucking them up there like that. And also giving that same defensive intensity. And what allowed, Drew and KP to come in to just be like those sustainers. Like, Drew would be the cutter that always go in the basket, or be the one that's trying to get the offensive rebound to kind of kick it and going in there. And then KP, his mid-range game was huge. his mid game range was absolutely huge. Just be sustaining those drives where teams, you'd see us give up a 15 to 20 point lead, and we'd give it up all the way. Here, like, all right, it might get chipped away because the law of averages says you can't stay hot forever in a 48-minute game. But they kept it sustained long enough where, like, all right, the lead got cut down to 10. All right, let's accelerate again. Let's get back into our flow and then bring that lead back up to 20, 25 and just call it a wrap on these games.
Yeah.
And that's the encapsulation of the Celtics right here this year.
Yep. That's the right point right there. That's the point that, like, I think a lot of people didn't see. Like, losing 3 games in that postseason run is pretty crazy. And we could talk about where you line up historically. I don't really care too much, but if you look at those games that they lost, the other team shot really well in those games. And that's what it is. Like, it's gonna take an astronomical shooting night from the opponent to beat a version of the Celtics that was playing that type of basketball. And if it happens, so be it. But it wasn't sustainable in the long haul of a 7-game series for anybody that they played.
Nope.
I don't care who was healthy. I don't care who wasn't healthy. You know why? Because if you watch regular season basketball, you saw the Celtics do this all year, and it wasn't an anomaly. They did this all season. They ran through the East. That was how they played basketball. That game against the Warriors is like the one that sticks in my mind where they were just beating them unreal the whole game. And it's like, that's one of the best shooting teams. Well, maybe not the moment, but they were one of the best shooting teams in the NBA history. And you're like running through these guys and you're like, oh man, this is not just a freight train that might be able to do it. Like, they know exactly what they need to do. And I think this is going to be I never felt more confident in a Celtics basketball team that they were going to pull this off.
No, and it was quiet confidence with it too, right? Because you could see it throughout the regular season when they're still trying to figure out that meshing with KP, that meshing with Drew, and then KP gets hurt. In the regular season too, KP missed 34 games. Yeah. It wasn't like we had a full regular season. And here's the thing that, like, when we'll probably talk more about narratives in a few, but one of the things that drove me nuts was that, like, there's certain things that people will write about with the narratives when it comes to the Celtics. KP got hurt. KP got hurt throughout that entire playoff run, and we still went 4-5-5. And then even when he came back game 1, you saw what potential could be for how, like, those high level games where we were losing our mind when Jalen to Kristaps, especially. I think there was one play in Milwaukee where I remember off the top where it was just a beautiful pass from Jalen to just like a cutting Porzingis and just dunking, and just that attack and that motion that just left every defender just kind of shook because they're like, I don't know who to stop. And when you're getting one-on-one looks, it's impossible to break, especially with the level of talent that we have. We can talk about where Tatum is on the rankings or whatever, like top 5, top 10. Like, all I know is that we got 5 people that I think are probably top 50 in this league, and that talent came through.
Yep.
And that's really what it is. And it's an impressive collection of people, but really it's been impressive. And to bring it back to the importance of, like, why this is so big, the importance of the 2 that we got initially, Jalen and Jason, and who like been through so much. Again, like, we're talking 3 coaches in 5 years. We're talking so many star players coming in and out. We're talking, Kemba, Kyrie, Gordon, Al coming, leaving, like, just going in there and just dealing with that and still being the constant while finding your game, finding yourself as a person. We're talking about 2 dudes that came in at 19 years old each, that are coming into a city that put this pressure right on them, forged by the flames of the Boston sports media, the 98.5s and the EEIs, just talking, like, saying that they're not going to be it. They've been molded by these takes already. So hearing what was heard nationally was nothing in comparison to what you heard on the radio waves coming and going for these 2. But at the end of the day, and the fascination with this is that it's so rare to see 2 players stay with the original team that drafted and win a title. And so, like, I looked it up just out of curious, because the way that the modern NBA moves is that, like, it's, people winning titles, usually their second, third team. Jalen and Jason became the 5th and 6th player since the turn of the century to win a title with their original team that drafted them.
Great.
And, like, I'm kind of cheating a little bit because I'm counting LeBron in that mix, and LeBron didn't win that initial title. He had to go to college down in Pat Riley University to come back and get that title for Cleveland. But and ironically, he won it with 2 of the 3 other people, Kyrie and Tristan. But any other person that's been drafted top 5 in the 21st century have not won a title except Tristan, Kyrie, Dwayne Wade, LeBron, now Jalen and Jason.
I love it, man. Those are the facts. And I will say shout out to the Philadelphia 76ers and the Los Angeles Lakers for being incompetent in back-to-back drafts and slipping on Brown and slipping on Tatum and being.
This is the true process. This is the true process right here.
This is the process. You should have trusted. You should have trusted it, man. You should have trusted it.
God.
But it's all great points that you bring up, of course, and it kind of leads me to my next point because, like, you know, everything has been talked about the Celtics and the offense that they played and whatever. We'll talk about Tatum and Brown and all that stuff. But there was a part of this that I don't think was talked about enough, and it was defensively. How locked in they were, specifically in this Mavs series, where coming into the finals after seeing what the Mavs did to the Wolves, you know, people were talking about Kyrie and Luka being the best backcourt in NBA history. I mean, there was all types of things swirling around. And granted, I will say, like, generational talents, we're not going to take anything away from either of the two great basketball players. But it's almost like you knew Luka, like, it's kind of impossible to stop that. You know he's going to score. You just got to contain it. You got to do your best job at containing it. And what the Celtics did in the series is exactly that. They were like, yo, we're going to play him tough, of course. He's not going to be shooting logo threes like he was against the Wolves and disrespecting them in that game 7. Thumbs up to that. You do the best job you can against him and then pick your poison. And salute to Jaylen Brown, which I think is a big part of the reason why he won MVP and doing such a good job of that. But, like, defensively, man, we gotta give props and talk about the effort they have, man.
Oh, for sure. And I think people confuse just general defenses in the NBA in general. Like, the Minnesota Timberwolves had a very good defense. Let be absolutely clear. They just were young in the wing, and they didn't really have two guys that could kind of cover wings and point guards, right? So, like, I mean, you see Gobert getting on skates over there, like, you kind of feel bad, but also, like, that he needs to learn how to move laterally at this point in time. Like, he knows he's going to get exposed on there, but, like, you kind of go in there. What Boston does well is that they allow people to switch, and if you can't defend, you're not playing. Point blank. And you could see that in there, even when they're letting Horford out there. Horford, 38 years old, who unsung hero. Again, the Boston Dominican Republic connection stronger than ever nowadays, man. He just was on an island on them, and he was not stopping him. And it's a little different than back in 22. Like, everyone was freaking out about the drop coverage with him. It's different with these two types of players where, like, it's not catch and shoot immediately for them. They played kind of into our pace. And we've lived beating people one-on-one. Like, you cannot beat us one-on-one. Simple, straight up. Like, we've done it with Embiid. We've done it with Giannis. You can put up numbers, but you're not going to get you're not getting assists, and no one else is going to get off. And that's exactly what happened right there, where we denied all their lobs. We denied their corner threes. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, it's going to be step back. It's going to be middies. Great. Good luck hitting those difficult shots. You're not doing that for a full 48. And then on top of that, because we have 5 shooters and because we have 5 people that can attack the basket, you're going to be running on defense too. So all that energy that you've been putting on one side, you're going to be burning over there too. And those legs are going to be tired. Yeah. So good luck and Godspeed. And you can see what happened.
Yeah, Luka was completely gassed. And like I said, like, I think some people were just a little too deep into sipping the Kool-Aid with the Mavs Wolves series. But once again, if you watch these teams during the regular season and throughout the playoff run, you can see the differences there. And the Celtics were always going to be a tough matchup for them on defense because, like you said, that ability to be able to switch and play 1 through 5 basically with anybody confidently. And that's exactly what they did, man. Like, it was a game plan that worked to perfection because it, like you said, it kind of played into it. It wasn't a catch and shoot where, like, now you're worried about the Warriors catch and shoot and you might have to take that drop coverage for a second. But if you give them a little bit of space, they're right over your head with it. Like, these guys, Kyrie and Luka specifically, you know they're going to dribble the ball. They're going to think about it. And it just played out. All of the advantages the Celtics had them in every which way, which is it made it that much more simple for them.
And you could even see it in game 5 too, when we were, testing KP out, going on there. Like, they attacked KP and they were getting their actions. They were getting Josh Green good looks over there. And that's when it's like, oh, okay, they're kind of seeing something there. But the problem was at that point, it was all their bench people actually doing stuff. They were getting those lobs a little bit, but then Kyrie and Luka just couldn't hit threes. Mm-hmm. They couldn't get their shots off. Like, we disrupted everything enough where they can get one part of the symphony going, but they couldn't get the full orchestra. And that's why, that's something that Luka and Dallas got to go back to and just understand. Like, if you really want to try to win 16, there's a lot that it takes. There's so much more to it. And it's those tired legs. It's that energy. Like, everyone's going to be playing hurt at this point. Everyone's going to be nicked up, but do you got it in you to do one more final push to get to that title? And I'll be fascinated to see what happens with that duo. I know they were talking about it's that, Kyrie's like the most skilled. This can be like the most skilled backcourt of all time, if what people were going to call for it. But at the end of the day, the skills weren't really effective. Like, when they're putting out fadeaways 24 feet out or step backs 23 feet out, and they weren't hitting. Yeah, it just proved that, like, you can have all the skills in the world, but if you don't got the energy for it, you ain't going to do it. You ain't going to produce.
And this is why Ben's on the show, because we're running through this naturally. Is a perfect segue to the next topic. It's like we used to do back in Suffolk. Kyrie Irving, man. The narrative around Kyrie in Boston is one that will never end. Obviously, for for those reasons that they may be. Like I mentioned, Kyrie's an amazing basketball player, probably one of my favorite to watch with the basketball. But we know it's mental. We see it in Boston. Like, he just can't get over that hump. And I think going into that building for Game 5, knowing that a title was on the line, it was no other way it was going to play out in my head for Kyrie. Like, he just couldn't get going. I think it was just bad decision making, always kind of second guessing, because he has that pressure on him, knowing how things ended when he was in Boston. And this is the thing I want to say. Like, people always talk about the racism and this and that, but we have to remember that like, I'm not condoning none of that, obviously, but we have to remember the reason why Celtics fans hate Kyrie is very just out there. Like, he said he wanted to stay. He said he wanted to retire as a Celtic. Right. He said he wanted to win a championship. Things did not pan out that way. He kind of took a left in the middle of a playoff run, and then he's out, and now he's trash talking. So if there's a city that's gonna, I mean, a lot of cities around the country, Philly's a perfect example. If Philly hates you, good luck. And even if you play on their team, still they still will do that. New York, obviously, and many others. But that's where this Kyrie stuff stems from. But I'm interested to hear your take and just how that played out, because, like I said, it's such a mental roadblock, and it was so funny when the stepping on Lucky thing got blown out of proportion completely. Yep. You kind of look back at it, you're like, yo, this guy might curse in that building, man.
Not enough stage in the world, man. No, so you bring up a lot of important things on there, especially with how Kyrie was going through a lot of things, personally, and then the crowd, Boston's history. We know Boston's history. It's nothing pretty about it. It might be the only time you hear people use the R in certain instances, right? Like, it is what it is. I'm not trying to discredit any of that. I just go with one of our favorite philosophers, Sean Carter. All you got is your balls and your word. Mm-hmm. And he broke his word. Like, he said, and I quote, "If you want me back, I will gladly be here. If you want me back." We wanted him back. Even if he, that Milwaukee series, he was clearly in Cancun mode, clearly going through a lot of stuff, and then proved out that he was talking with Kevin Durant, right? Like, he lied about that, right? And so goes to Brooklyn, builds that team. And it's interesting that it's Brooklyn for the many reasons. Like, we traded, that's how we got Jalen and Jason. There's so much connections with that. And that fan base felt thrived by that, thinking that they were going to get a title before us. But he's shown how hard it was. And then we've already gotten our, as Boston fans, I feel like we got our win already. Like, we swept them out in 2022. Like, they got us in 2021, but Jalen broke his wrist, right? And it was just, we were trying to figure out what we're doing post Kyrie. We got Kemba, on gas at that point on one knee, and so 22 we're coming in, we sweep them. We get our people.
Just trying to duck them in the playoffs. Don't forget that everybody was like trying to avoid playing them. The Celtics like, now we want them. Let's go.
We'll take them. We'll take all that smoke. And then he realized how hard it is to kind of run a franchise. He thought he could be a general manager and a coach at the same time, and the star player. And it all fell apart. Now, granted, Kevin Durant's foot on the line might change a whole bunch of stuff. Milwaukee wins their title based off that, right? But at the end of the day, he left Brooklyn. That to me signifies the win right there. Like, you left to try to get your dream spot, and then everything that happened out of that, some of it's out of his control, some of it is, if you just listen to doctors instead of doing your own research. But he just couldn't get it in Brooklyn. So he gets shipped off to Dallas. And at that point, we're talking 5 years ago now, man. Like, we've grown past that. The battles that we've already gone and the battles that we've proven on there. Would I've loved to have seen him kind of do this here? Yeah, I still think he would have been a great Celtic. I still think he's, one of the best point guards I got to see on a day in, day out basis. I got to see the skill. I was enamored with it. I saw it. And that's part of why, like, it hurt so much, because I'm just like, you just focus. I know, like, that was the part that sucked. So, it's 5 years ago at this point. Like, it's just one of those things where you see an old ex, and after a time, place, and like, we were both in bad places at that time. I've grown from it. I hope you've grown from it, and we're gonna go from there. But there's still gonna be that that energy towards you. Like, I'm not gonna be like, let's get back together or anything, right? And so he just became the standard Boston villain, and I think he thought we still had that kind of vitriol from 5 years ago, when it's like, you're in the way of our title. Like, that's different. We were ready for Luka, and like, Luka would have gotten it just as bad and worse if Kyrie wasn't there. But Luka, you know, he got a little bit, you know, he shown how mentally broken he got when, you know, someone said he was tired and he called someone's his mom, your mom's a hoe. And I'm just like, oh, okay. So like you don't like it. It's fun when you're reaping, but when you're sowing, it kind of sucks, right? Oh, okay. So yeah, with Kyrie, it's just I hope he can finally compartmentalize and just get through what he needs to get through with that. But he's just the standard Boston villain now.
Yeah, you know, Boston sports fans love that, to have a villain to
Yeah.
go against. And like just seeing it over the years, like you mentioned, like the Boston fans were over it. It's like you're not something you're gonna keep living on forever. But I think he almost like kept leaning into it when he would go back to Boston, doing the Sage thing and all that. And I'm like, this guy's still like he's still trying to make this a thing. So it kind of like played right into the narrative. And like you mentioned, like one of the best players I've literally ever seen with the Rock. And I always say this: I wish he would have worked out in Boston. Like I would much rather be cheering for him than having to cheer against him.
I was still like, no, re-sign him, because I just didn't think there was a better option. Really, honestly, because that skill you get enamored with, and I could see why people always try to go to bat for him, because you see him when he's focused on just ball, he's great, he's fantastic. But there's just so much other things that came with him, and you're seeing it. You saw it in Brooklyn. You kind of see it in Dallas, I guess. I just don't know what the mental, just the mental breakdown of this. But like he's also now 32. It's not like he's in his prime per se. Like NBA is getting weird where people just kind of forget like how old some of these players are. And I'm just like, you're still going to try to trot them out, 12, 13, 14 years in the league. They're not going to be there, a full 16, a full playoff run. There's going to be times there, it's going to be clunkers, and you need to have contingency plans and hope that your team can carry them when, the players can also recognize that they're also having a bad night too.
I think this playoff did an excellent job in general, not just speaking of the Celtics, did an excellent job in general of showing that when you have somebody like Ant going at KD, like in that early matchup, and KD's like, yo, I can't do nothing with this. I've been doing this for how many years at an elite level? Like this dude this young boy is cooking me right now. And it's like you saw that around certain matchups, and the Celtics are a good proof of that as well too. Like you forget how young JB and JT still are because they started this at such a young age and have been successful. But it's like you're going to run that energy against somebody like Kyrie who has the wear and tear in his legs, like even somebody like Luka that physically isn't there. And I think you saw him, like once he fouled out of that game, I think that was like the checkout moment. I mean, there were a lot of moments that you're like, this is cooked. But when he fouled out of that game, I was like, I think he knows this is over. Like he could drop 50 and 60 on his own, and I still think he knows that it wouldn't be enough to beat that team.
It's more that it's the refs. It's the biggest thing with Luka is just those referees, man. Like he just needs to and Tatum was very much a victim of this early on in his career too, and even in 2022, you could see him just kind of side-eyeing the refs. Even 2024, actually, Game 4, you can kind of see he was checking out a little bit because the calls weren't going his way. He wasn't getting those fouls, and you could see he wasn't paying attention to the level of detail. And then Dallas broke the levee open and busted one on our head. It's just one of those things where if Luka doesn't get those calls, and he works those refs so hard, like all game long. He's just working them. He's like a politician. He really is in that aspect where he's just like trying to just get those calls, and that's got to be grating. And it's a different mindset when it is to the finals, even if the Western finals too. Like he got a taste of it in 2022, and he was able to take that into 2024. But you're just not going to be able to just get those ticky-tack calls every single time just because. Like you're going to get physicality. And it was actually pretty funny when he was saying we couldn't play physical. I'm like, you were doing stupid stuff. There's a difference between playing physical and doing stupid stuff. Like there was that fourth foul that he hit on Derek White where he just slapped him. And I'm like, that's not playing physical. That's just playing stupid.
Don't give that up, especially you. Do not give that cheap foul up.
Right. And then not for nothing. All his effort offensively, defensively, he was awful.
Practice cone, bro. It's a practice cone.
In practice cone, like the chair that Yijing Liang, did his draft practice on had more, effort on the defensive end sometimes. And then all of a sudden, you want to try and get a charge on the 3-point line. That's when you want to put in effort like that on your fifth foul. When your team's finally hitting shots, the Celtics are out of sorts a little bit when their open looks aren't falling, and then they're getting kind of not ideal shots as well. And that's when you want to kind of go and put defense in. That's right there. Like, that makes sense to me.
At all, man, at all. And yeah, like that frustration of Bills, man. Like
Yep.
you get pushed to the limit, and then you break, and especially if you know you're outmatched. I mean, that's what's gonna happen. Let's talk about the word that everybody's been using around the Celtics and its narrative, because there's so many nasty ones, and there has been so many nasty ones. So I'm gonna give you the floor to talk about a narrative or whatever narratives you want to, and kind of tell people why the hell they're stupid and wrong. And this might take a long time.
Well, it's just one of those situations where there's so many pieces that you could pick apart. You could have tested the Celtics depth past the 1 through 6. Like we have Hauser, who's undrafted, Pritchard, who's like an unheralded point guard. The bigs past Al, like those were our weak points. Those were our Achilles heels. And that right there is where you could have tested and proven. Like you could have been right there because it got tested thoroughly. It got tested very hard by Cleveland and Indiana, that after Al, we had no one that could stop, athletic bigs. Evan Mobley was having the time of his life having Cornette on him because he could just do whatever he wanted. And then on top of that, Indiana, they disrespected Indiana so much, but they are very much I don't want to say dollar store version because it seems disrespectful, but they're like 2 steps below what the Celtics have, where they have so many people that can attack you, and they're going to be going nonstop, and they're going to keep coming and coming and coming, to the point where, like, yeah, they lost Halliburton, who was their best creator, but they still have very good players on all ends that were
basketball team, man,
beating our ass offensively. Like it was just frustrating over there, where all of a sudden Andrew Nemhard all of a sudden just turns into like it reminded me of like how Ben Gordon did like the Chicago Bulls back in the day, in the 09 season, that first round, where someone just got a fireball up his ass and he was just going on us. And that's what Nemhard was for those 2 games. And even then, it was a sweep.
Yeah.
So just I think people got so hung up about the West. Everyone had a deadly flaw in the West. OKC didn't have anyone up front that could stop them. Ironically, if they're the ones that get Daniel Gafford, they have a much better chance of probably getting to a title and give us much more of a fit because they have that balance. Denver, it's their depth. Like post Bruce Brown, they didn't have anyone over there. Obviously, they have Aaron Gordon. Obviously, things were going well, but they just ran into the team that was just perfectly built up against them. Minnesota, it's the history of Minnesota. Like there's so much with Minnesota over there. Like you got Cat, who's still trying to figure it out, who's doing very good as a second option, but he hasn't gone this far. You got Rudy, who's been exposed in the playoffs over and over and over again, and you're relying on a 22-year-old to really kind of figure things out. And, Ant showed out. Great. But, as soon as he was up over there, he just didn't have it for the West Coast Finals. He kind of just lost all that energy because they were so hyper beating the champs. And I think that's what the hyperfixation was, that everyone was so focused on Denver and Jokic and this machine, but Denver is also beatable. Like, it's not like they were dominant and they had KCP, but like they really missed having that secondary ball handler to kind of take that pressure off a little bit of both Jamal and Jokic, and also on the defensive side too. And, obviously that's part of cap casualties right there. Like they couldn't pay Bruce $20 million annually for that, but they won their title. They got their cake. They just lost it. And so from that, being so focused on the West, that being the challenge, you kind of lose yourself seeing how dominant this team is. And even with game 4, or not even game 4, it's game 3. Like the narratives I kept hearing about, like, oh, that game should have never gotten that close. Okay, but they won.
Right.
Okay, like, yes, you can blame the offense over there, and you can blame getting excited off of it and stuff. But they built up that lead well enough, and they figured it out at the end, and they started hitting clutch buckets in the last 5 minutes. Like, it happened. And it's just one of those things. Why did it bother getting clutch? Why does the goalpost keep moving? This is a team that put out 50 20-point leads in their 101 games played. They went 48-2. And there's only 2 games they lost, and they're seared in my brain. Is the friggin' Dean Wade game against Cleveland, where he turned into he turned into a combination of like JJ Redick, Jimmer Fredette, and just name your Kyle Korver. Just Kyle Korver, he just summed up all those parts in one quarter and just shot the lights out. And then the other game was Dejounte Murray shooting 45 times in Atlanta. Nice. Like, just games that, like, in the regular season, those games happen, right? But you put up 50 20-point leads. It's stupid. It's a stupid number to hear for, like, the type of dominance, especially for a team that's quote-unquote reliant on the three-point shot. Like, it's just wild to see. And then people just kept waiting for the playoffs. And I think this is kind of a revert back to, you got to pay attention to the regular season more. Regular season means so much now, especially in the era of parity. This is now the 6th straight year that it's a new champ. And like, you're going to find out more when you're just paying attention to the narratives here, instead of waiting until the playoffs to figure stuff out. Because you keep waiting, then all of a sudden you're going to say it's an easy road, but we went 16-3 without our starting center and a 38-year-old playing, another playoff of his life, which I hope Al's going to see Springfield. He's going to be a Hall of Famer with what he's gotten in Florida and, now the title here and just the time he's put in. But this is now like the 3rd straight year Al has just shown out defensively and just been more reliant on a 3-point shot, but just been so effective, man. Like I remember he's going to go down as the greatest free agent signing in Celtics history. I never in my wild years when we signed, but did I think he was going to be this locked down still for this long?
Yeah. Especially because he had to transition his game so much too on offense. It's like you're doing that while transitioning on offense and learning how to play a kind of a different style of basketball than you're used to. It's absolutely
still getting better too. Like his release is getting just quicker as time goes. And I'm just like, man, you're still able to do this at your age, at this time. Like, honestly, like if he can keep doing this, I keep trotting him out for 15 to 20 until he's like, I'm good. If he still can do this, it's impressive to have that as your second big.
Yeah.
And so like those are it's the smaller narratives there. Just like, oh, but everyone's kind of in the entertainment part. Oh, the entertainment part. That's the narrative that pisses me off. It's competition, man. Like you want storylines, I'm a wrestling fan. Let's watch Raw and SmackDown together. We can weave some great storylines down there. Right here was the story of two people who stuck together through everything and still climb the mountain together in a city where you're only certified when you get a title. Like, and despite that, they've been so successful. They've done everything else but get to it. And then they've gone and done it. And by the way, they're only 26, 27.
Yeah.
Like that's the part I'm looking forward to now, is that like they got that pressure off them now.
Yep.
How are they going to play? How free are they going to play? Knowing that they are now the hunted versus the hunter, or just chasing and just getting there. They've reached their dreams.
That's going to be a game changer. I think once you alleviate that weight off your shoulders, it's kind of like, all right, man, we could play freely now and not have to try to live up to this expectation. Like we got one. Like it's the cliche, but what are they going to say? Like, it doesn't really matter at this point. And that's my thing, is like my narrative is exactly what you brought up. And so many people, when the playoffs start, just become instant basketball experts and they don't watch regular season basketball. And I just don't understand why everybody's so quick to kind of disregard what happens in the regular season, because it will tell you a lot of times what is going to happen in these series. And it is not always 1-for-1, but it's going to be a good baseline for you to say like, hey, this team did this during the regular season. Like, this is kind of what they have to offer. And you mentioned like, there's other ways you could have tested the Celtics and things you could have done. But to me, it was always like, why were people necessarily looking for excuses or trying to find ways to say that the Celtics, or even just with the finals, like, the Mavs are going to win. Like, I'm not big on like the experts and the keep receipts nonsense, because prediction is a prediction. It doesn't matter. Right. It's right or wrong. It doesn't matter. But there was literally people out there convinced that like, oh no, this Mavs team is going to beat the Celtics. I'm like, did nobody watch from October to April? Like, was that just not a thing? I don't know.
And it's not just the hot take people that are doing. It's smart basketball people that I listen to, like Legler, like just like people like that, where I'm just like, ball. You know what it takes down there. You know what this defense can do, but you're still the aura, I guess, of Kyrie and Luka was just good enough to take out the Celtics. And I just sat there and I'm like, how? Like, people got so transfixed on last year. And it's like how I said earlier, it was unfair to Jalen and Jason that last year is what they held when they've been as battle tested a duo as there's been in the league. And you just want to sit here and now all of a sudden just say like, oh, they're chokers?
Yeah.
No. Like, that's the part that got me just going insane, because I'm just like, am I taking crazy pills? Like, Jaylen Brown's played more playoff games than Paul George. Mm-hmm. He's about to play more than Jimmy Butler. Jason's already got 100 games on there. Mm-hmm. You add someone with Drew who's got that title experience to come in on there. Derek's now 3 years into the system. Al, almost 200 playoff games. Like there's not much more of a playoff tested crew. It's just that people didn't believe in the style. And if you don't believe in the style, then you're not going to be convinced.
Sure.
And it's a different style than people said this is how analytics are going to win. I don't think you're going to analytics can't find you 5 people that can defend like this. No. I'm sorry. Like that's the part that will always crack me. Oh, it's the analytics. It's not the analytics.
And Ben's a number guy.
It's my job. I'm an accountant. Like I'll see the numbers, but the numbers ain't going to tell me who's going to be able to be this good of a cover. Because like that's been the whole crux of Drew his entire career. He's never been a numbers guy, but like people will tell you he's the best damn defender in the league.
Yep.
Okay. And now you got to see it. And so now you got to see it again, winning another title for another franchise, which, you know, I am so thankful Milwaukee panicked about Giannis leaving that they decided they needed Dame Lillard. Yes. And not only that, like deciding that Drew was the person that had to go instead of duct tape Chris Middleton. Like, thank you. Yeah. Like that saved it all there. And that brought out so much relief out of it because, you know, KP kind of proved himself a little bit to be, you know, he's fantastic. It's like a luxury car, but it's the upkeep so expensive.
There's a risk that comes with it.
It's a huge risk. And then now next year, we're going to see what happens when he's probably out till Christmas. Like, I don't want to see him until 2025 personally.
Yeah. It's almost like, oh, we're good. We're good.
Yeah, we're good.
Yes,
like,
man.
Jordan Walsh and Neemias Queta, go get your minutes. Like, I'm good. Like, find ways to develop.
Let's end this with we kind of just let into it, but we'll do some little name association. I'll drop a name and you kind of just give me your thoughts, your feelings. It could be quick. You just or what you think of them in this moment right now as we do this podcast.
Okay.
I'm gonna start with Brad Stevens.
Brad Stevens. He bucks so many trends. This is a college coach who, you know, mid-major, just knows X's and O's, knows what he likes to see in basketball players, was a very good coach. Think he was a top 5 coach. I know I probably would have said he was the best coach, but Spoelstra kind of showed me, you know, I was wrong. But to transition the way he did as an executive and just leaning into being like, instead of trying to find the stars, we have the stars. Let's build around them and go from there. And the moves he put together, man, like he's the best GM that wants to win. Like there's definitely other GMs like Presti in Oklahoma City. He's great at being an asset manager and, you know, getting all those picks and getting, you know, something for small market teams. But right now for someone that's trying to win, he's the best out there. And it's been proven between the Derek White trade, between the Drew trade and the opportunity to getting him. And then, you know, getting KP and 2 first-round picks. Like that's the biggest part that drove me nuts. You would have told me that Marcus Smart would have gone for, you know, a bona fide piece and 2 first-rounders in any other time. You would have thought, you know, I'm a green teamer, I'm sipping the Kool-Aid, but it happened.
Yeah.
Right. So like, he's just, it's impressive to see. And it's clear. I don't think he wants to coach again. So I'm very glad for that. Cause he can have this job as long as he likes.
Mm-hmm.
I love his philosophy. I love his style on there. And even just trusting his gut on coaching. Like he proved everyone wrong with Joe Mazzulla, proved me wrong, but it also showed what happened when you put a good coaching staff together. And I'm curious to see what's going to happen next year with it.
Yeah, and like you said, buck the trend, especially in a NBA that is so one way that people are focusing on the stars and trying to make these massive trades. The Celtics, Brad Stevens specifically, were like, "Yo, we're gonna stick to this." As much as people wanted to say, split this up. Like he just stuck to it. You mentioned the name. The next name I wanted to go to, Rhode Island's own Joe Mazzulla.
I mean, he's a psycho in all the best ways. Like he's. People are going to roll their eyes when I say this in this mindset, but like on those press conferences, he's Belichickian, where like he doesn't care anything about inside basketball. Excuse me. That's crazy. He just only cares about basketball, only cares about what happens on that court. He doesn't care about anything else on the outside except like the town. And that's about it. And his family and God, right? Like he comes off as just this terse, weird dude, but terse, weird dudes that win title, all of a sudden they look like geniuses. Mm-hmm. So I like his mindset of it. I like that he trusts his guys. I like he's learning on the job and he's learned very well. I think he's playing more styles and more matchups, and it was impressive to see over the years. From year to year, it's been impressive growth. I'm glad to have him as my coach.
Yeah, and it's so crazy how much, we speak about narratives, how much that shift from last year or the last 2 seasons to this year with Joe Mazzulla, because we knew when the Ime thing happened, it was like, okay, he was next in line
Mm-hmm.
because, the players like him because he kind of has that merit already. But because he got thrown into it so quickly and still did a good job at that in his first season, it was
Yeah.
like, man, I don't know if this is going to be the right guy. And it's like, like you said, now it's all about instant gratification. You almost have to like let things play out. And the whole trust the process thing is hilarious to come back around to it, because it's like sometimes you have to, instead of being the Lakers and hiring a podcaster to be your coach that has zero high level coaching experience. Like there's teams and situations that, are just going to try to do the most. And it's like, yo, we got to be confident and stick to what we can. And I think Mazzulla, rightfully so, deserving his victory lap, because he did it the way that he wanted to. He stuck to his principles as a basketball coach. And like you mentioned, he didn't let too much of that outside noise get around to that team, especially because he knew he was on the brink of something special with that team. And he didn't really probably have to do too much different. He just needed to stay the course. He needed to give these players confidence. And when the media tried to tear them down and all these days leading up to the finals, he's like, this is bullshit, and this is why I'm gonna tell you it's bullshit. And that's the best part about it. Is like, yo, these are my guys. I'm gonna ride with it, man.
Amen. And the biggest thing I think that we always forget about this is that, like, obviously we know the head coach, he had to lead Ime's guys last year. He didn't have time to pick people. And then on top of that, his best assistant that he had, Damon Stoudemire, left for Georgia Tech. Mm-hmm. So like he was running with the skeleton crew as best as he could. And you could see it when it mattered in the playoffs, where those attention to details is what bit them in the ass last year.
Yep.
And so to come in and get, some robust NBA experience around him to kind of help him while he builds out this philosophy, you could see the proof in there. And that was the amazing part of this. Now, do I think he's the next Spoelstra? I don't know. I'd like to find out, right? But I'd like to just see what the next steps of this are, especially when it's going to be coming to developing players too.
Sure.
Like, he's got now a very veteran squad, older squad, but with, the second apron coming out, he's going to try to find guys that are, untested, unproven, that we need to develop to become proven pieces. Like how Sam Hauser has been developed over these past few years, who like has been a marvel in terms of development, and being someone that gets attacked and harassed on defensively can be trusted and safe out there. Like he's not a stopper, but he's serviceable. And so that's the part where I'm like, all right, who do we got in Maine that can kind of help be there just in case, because he's going to get paid. It's going to be next man up. Who's going to be that 8th, 9th guy that can really help us and sustain us, and also be the difference between, the 1 seed and the 3 seed. Like those are the types of players that make a difference in terms of the wins and losses in the regular season.
That's a big deal, especially when it comes to coaching, because it's so multifaceted. It's not just going out there and calling plays and calling timeouts. Like there's so many other aspects that you need to be good at and also improve at. So yeah, his evolution is going to be pretty interesting to watch. Hopefully it goes in the right path. We mentioned the name earlier, but I want to bring it up because like I say, talking about the regular season and watching, and then talking about people being experts in the playoffs, Peyton Pritchard, man, because what we saw him do in the regular season, these half-court shots that people probably on a random Tuesday didn't even catch wind of, is something that happened. And Joe credited that to being maybe one of the biggest moments in this run. So Peyton Pritchard is the next name on the list.
Peyton, I mean, I appreciate him, right? Like I'm glad he's kind of accepted his role a little bit and put belief in there. He was kind of unhappy with how things were last year, and it was starting to demand a trade. And he's a 6'2" guard. He's an energy guy, and he brings that energy. And he definitely is great in the regular season. When the playoffs, you've come to see, like, Dallas ran him off the court. You could not play him at all. Like, they were attacking him aggressively, and it's not his fault, right? Like, you can only do so much when you got Luka on there, and he's going to post you up, put him on there in like the mid-range stuff, and he's just not tall enough and like rangy enough to kind of make it a little more difficult. But coming in to be like a special teamer, like the Matthew Slater of the Boston Celtics, coming in there just being your gunner, it's fantastic. Like, I think he hit 3 threes all finals, and 2 of them were those bombs. Like,
crazy,
ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous.
I love it, and it's an energy thing, like you say. When you get that in the playoffs, you get a moment in the playoffs that amps up a building or amps up a team. Like, that goes such a long way. We mentioned this name as well too, but I think it's important to kind of give him his due. KP, man, because I know it was in the offseason. I had a nice little conversation here with a few friends in LA, and I always said I wish that conversation, more so a debate, was recorded, because there were Lakers fans there, there were Mavs fans there were Celtics fans there, and me and my boy, shout out to Kareem, literally were just like, yo, you guys don't understand how different this team is going to be because KP's on the floor. Like, it's going to give them so much. It's going to stretch the floor. Like, everything always goes back to the, yeah, but he's injury prone. Yeah, but he's injury prone. And like you said, we saw it. Like, it happened during the regular season. It happened during the playoffs. But it's the high risk, high reward. And when the Celtics needed him, and that game one, let the clip off, when they needed him in certain moments, he came through and did what he did. This is exactly what I think was expected from Porzingis. I feel like every Celtics fan was like cautiously optimistic, but also like, yo, this guy's a really good basketball player. People are just judging him because of the past stops, maybe in New York, maybe in Washington, whatever. But what are your thoughts on KP?
Well, I think it's really about how he was used too. I think, the Dallas situation, he kind of just got played out. Like, he just came in hurt. He had another injury there, and then he just turned into like the tallest 3-and-D guy in NBA history, where I'm like, that's not him. And like, you just see that and you're like, all right, how's this going to transition out? He goes to Washington. He has the best year there on the offensive end, but he put in the work defensively. And I think obviously he's tall, but like, we've seen tall people in the NBA, just, like Sean Bradley over there, like they can be tall, but they can also not really be that impactful defensively. He was a rim protector. And I'm like, okay, that's what really made the Celtics click with Robert Williams, was that rim protection was there. And that guy that could be a threat on the pick and rolls to kind of just be that driver. But he just unlocks so much more in so many different ways, where having that mid-range game, having that 3-point range, just, it puts it to levels that I didn't imagine were possible for a Celtics-led team. Like, those games, man, it was just pure euphoria, just seeing them go for 10 to 12-minute stretches of just pure, just barrages. Mm-hmm. And it's beautiful to see. It's unfortunate we didn't get to see him in the playoffs because he got hurt. But, man, and I think that's the part where I'm just like, I think people don't really want to give the Celtics credit for just winning these games because they didn't win them in the way they did in the regular season. But just because the style wasn't there, the sass wasn't there in the playoffs. Like, this team was just, they were playing with their food throughout the regular season when they were up, and there was nothing you could do about it. Yeah. And so, like, I'm just, all I'll say is, like, he's the best luxury to have.
He literally understood the assignment, as the kids will say nowadays, and did it in a great way. And I said it throughout the regular season. Like, he just looked so happy to be playing for the Celtics in that team. Like, he was just having fun. And that's always one of those things that gets lost on people that watch the game or like analyze it or judge it. Like, he's truly just having a good time, where in other places he looked like he was struggling through things. He looked like he was just not having fun. And I was like, when you are able to play freely, like we mentioned a little earlier about the Celtics maybe next season, that's going to be a game changer. And KP, like, just literally looked like he enjoyed playing for the Celtics, which I hadn't seen him look like that at all in any NBA stop. So that was huge.
It's that, like, there's championship pressure, obviously, but just coming in to be the guy, just like not the number 2 guy, not the number 3 guy, just come in, just do what you can best, and just play open, play free, and see what happens. And that you could see it. You could genuinely see it. And obviously you get rock bottom playing in Washington. I think this, the 9th straight year a Wizard has won an NBA title. Like, people hit rock bottom, and then all of a sudden they get into a good basketball situation, and then they suddenly find the love of the game again. And that's what's happened with KP.
And it's just like Al Horford from Philly to Boston, but we'll say that. And with the last 2 names, we will start with Jason Tatum, because it was, if anybody had to get a weight off his shoulder, I think the heaviest one, it was him, because of probably all the expectations he had on himself, was just, like we mentioned, the narrative that swirled around him since he got into the league. But I'm just so happy that maybe it didn't happen in an ideal way for him in terms of being that dominant player every single game and having the most points or whatever. But like we mentioned, he was just a smart basketball player, and he made good decisions instead of trying to force the issue when most superstars of his caliber probably would. He was just like, yo, I don't care about what y'all talking about. I don't care about what my points are. We have a goal, and that's win 16 games and lift this trophy. And he finally did it. So the floor is yours to speak about JT.
When you feel that loss, when you get so close to something, you feel that loss, and despite all his accolades and everything that he's done and that people have given him, that he's learned what it takes to win. And so I think last year, I really wish he never turned that ankle. I wanted to see what he would have done on Game 7. I think he would have either fell on the sword, or it'd be that matchup with Denver that we're all clamoring for, right? Mm-hmm. And so I'm very grateful to watch his development in terms of a person. It's like having a franchise quarterback in the NBA. Like, he doesn't say anything crazy. He's a family man. He might say all the cliche stuff, and that's been a whole narrative, which is also weird. Like, he's saying all the, like, he's talking in memes, which, you know, everyone does. So I don't know what the problem is there. And like, he manufactured, we did it, right? Like anything is possible isn't like a corny ass line. Please give me that. That's my dopamine right now, because that was for us. Like, we did it. He did it. Like, yes, it's corny. I ate it up. But someone, he's just done everything, quote unquote, the right way. Like, I don't know what else you'd ask for a player that has had this much pressure, and like someone that's been tested in the playoffs over and over and over again. He's at 100 games. He's amazing. I don't care where he is in the top 5. He's someone that, you know, he's still learning. I still think like he edits his shot diet a little bit. I'm not saying he's got to go crazy, and I don't think his body can sustain the amount of times he attacked the basket in the finals. I think he did like 20 drives a game or something like that, which is like 3 times the amount he did during the regular season. But if he can just edit his game a little bit more, even now that he's kind of working with the pieces that he's had, he's going to be getting those accolades, because those numbers and that efficiency is only going to go up from here. Mm-hmm. And that's the craziest part about it. Like, we're just scratching the surface with what he can do with this group of guys. And, you know, I for someone that should have went number 1 overall, who only didn't because Danny couldn't resist himself and get another draft pick, he's delivered in every way.
Mm-hmm. Shout out to Markelle Fultz and Lonzo Ball too, by the way. Consistency for me is consistency with JT, and I just think that I might be sipping the Kool-Aid too much right now. But if there's anybody in this current crop of stars that you would want to start your team around, it would be him. Like you said, it's like having that franchise quarterback that anchors, because he does it all. He's not going to shortchange you on the defensive end. Mm-hmm. He's not gonna shoot you out of a game on the offensive end. Like the way I see it is like, if you're in a slump, keep shooting. But like he's smart enough in his ways to be like, all right, we need to change this around. And he's not a selfish star. And that's what we talked about, of like everybody wanting that entertainment factor and somebody to be controversial. That's the stuff that works on social and all that cool stuff. That's great. When you're trying to win championships, when you're trying to be, you know, fulfill your dreams as a professional player, you don't really care about what they're talking about on Twitter. You don't care about what they're talking about on Instagram. That's for other people to talk about, right? And my thing is like, once again, he hears it all. Obviously, it's impossible for him not to hear it, but he never changed his demeanor all the way through. It's like, he is who he is. I'm going to be calm. I'm going to play basketball the way I know how to do it. And I'm pretty good at doing that, because I am that guy. Like when he said I'm one of the best basketball players, humbly, like, yeah, talk. Like that's probably the most like overt like thing he's ever said. And it wasn't a lie. So it's like, for him, it's like just being that consistent part and knowing that he had to deliver something to the Celtics, that he almost at probably one point felt like it was all on him, until maybe he realized like, yo, I have this crop of players with me that could help me get to this point. I don't need it to be all instant gratification. I don't need it to be all me. Like, we've already went through these lumps. Like, let's just do it, man, because it's going to feel so great when we finally do.
And there it is. And that's the biggest thing I think that kind of gets taken away when people are just looking at his shooting. Like, his rebounding all playoffs, like he was a walking double-double. His assists in the finals were stupid. Like, he was just finding those cutters, finding those open looks, getting everyone else in action. And then on top of that, he helped neutralize the biggest threat that Dallas had in their lobs. Like, he took on Gafford, he took on Lively, and then 1-5 pick and rolls, and they tried to switch it off, and they couldn't get those lobs off because he was tall, he was strong enough to, you know, hold them off and neutralize one of the biggest threats, which that's not going to get talked about because that's not the sexy thing to say. Mm-hmm. But he did all of that and still led, by the way, points, rebounds, and assists for the team. Like, right. I just don't. Again, he may be corny. Who cares, right? Like, I don't like if that's his biggest con on like the pros cons. Corny, I'll live with it. Okay,
I'll take it for sure. And let's go to last, but certainly not least. I left him for last with good reason. The 2024 NBA Finals MVP, the 2024 Eastern Conference Finals MVP, the guy that everybody had jokes for at the end of last season, the guy that everybody had jokes for all through the year, Jaylen Brown.
Jaylen Brown, man. First thing, he's the face of Boston sports right now. And for that man to be someone who is unapologetically unapologetically black in this city and embraces that and lives with it and does everything he can to help raise the community, it's a beautiful thing to see. I think he's always been a fantastic person. And I think in terms of his developments, he's always worked on one or two things, and he's gotten there year over year, and he's never gotten the accolades. I always thought of Jalen and Jason as equals, and they played differently. I called Jason the franchise quarterback. I compared Jalen like the franchise wide receiver in a way, but not like the diva way. But even though he tweets like a wide receiver. You know what I mean? Like you can just read his tweets sometimes and be like, a wide receiver would say that. But he's upfront. He's honest. He took all of the shit last year, ate it at that press conference, said we got to do better. We will come back better. There's never been more pressure on a person just getting paid like he did, $300 million, getting joked at, being, $300 million in one hand to dribble, but embraced it, like doing that dunk contest, going left, not afraid to make a fool of himself either. Like they weren't the flashiest dunks, but it's a dunk contest. Like it's boring over there, but he showed how good he is in the finals when he turned it into NBA Jam. Like he was just putting it on Dallas all throughout the finals. And he just stepped up a level from the second half, from the All-Star game on. Like he just had that aggression, and that leadership was really building. And this is the part where, Marcus leaving, Marcus was kind of being that leader and wanted to be that guy. And he did a great job. I think he, helped develop them in the way he did. But in order for both Jason and Jalen to grow, they needed to be the guys entirely. And Jalen took that responsibility on head on. Yeah. And he was taking it on during the regular season. Even when we went to Dallas, he was trying to get on Luka. He was trying to cover him defensively. He was being the one taking the toughest assignments, despite having Derek and Drew, despite having one of the best defensive backcourts that you could have. He was the one taking those assignments because he knew in order to win, he's got to be the one to step up. Because if he can be the one to defend the best guys, those two can worry about the other threats, then this defense is going to be on a whole other level. And then he just found this efficiency in the playoffs. And he gets his moment with that game-winning 3, and he gets the Eastern Conference MVP and admits that he wasn't going to get it, and then just continues that play on to the finals and winning a title. And, I'm glad he's on my team. 100%. I think he's finally above so many other players in this league with this run, this postseason run, like over Devin Booker, over Paul George. You can argue Kawhi if you want, but like the biggest strength about him right now is availability. And like him and Jason, they both got availability. They both play. You're good to get 70 to 80 games out of them, plus playing another 15 to 25 in the postseason. They're going to be there. And so, I'm just Jaylen Brown, face of Boston sports, and I couldn't be happier.
Yeah, and it's well-deserved, man. Like coming off of last year, and like you said, sitting in that press conference and how much he was hurt by not being able to get the team over the hump without JT. It's like, it's all about that progression and what you're going to be able to do to come back and kind of quiet that noise out and say, I improved and I'm going to show y'all instead of trying to tell you guys. 100%. And I love the humbleness that he carries. I love the passion. Like you said, he's right. He's wearing it. Like he's wearing the pride to play for the Celtics. He's wearing the pride of like, we're chasing something. Whenever they ask him whatever nonsense, he's like, I don't give a damn about that. Like we're about to go to the finals. Like everything that he did, it was just like, man, he was so locked in. And you mentioned a great thing in the second half of the regular season is when he hit that fast track. Like he was playing with that passion that I think is almost sometimes maybe what is lacking from that Celtics team, because you have superstars that are so mellow and players that are not going to go out there and bang on their chest. But when you see Jalen in the playoffs and leading up to the playoffs as well, getting these dunks and getting these blocks and being that guy that's, grabbing somebody around the shoulder, like, yo, man, like, let's do this. They have a lot of veteran leadership with Al, with Drew that had experience. But I think there was just a video they put out, I don't know if it was yesterday or whatnot, that it was JT and JB before the game 5. And he's like, yo, you're not out there alone. Like, I got you. Like, you with me. And it's just crazy how people talk about those two and all the things that surround them and trying to split that up and they don't like each other. Tatum's not happy when Brown wins the MVP. And it's like, yo, these are two dudes that have been doing it together from a young age, and they finally got to this mountaintop to see how that feels. I don't care what else y'all got to talk about, man.
Nope.
And they clearly don't give a damn what else y'all got to talk about because they got the hardware finally to show it. They about to have the parade. Maybe by the time you listen to this, they already had the parade. You're gonna see the ring, you're gonna see the trophy, and then you're gonna see Banner 18 soon. So forget the narratives, forget whatever nonsense, because JB is that guy.
Amen. Jalen is also, I can tell Jalen's really adapted to Boston very well when he became a Bostonian, when he admitted that he don't got time to give a fuck. That is pure Boston energy I've ever seen. He is truly a Bostonian in every which way. He didn't need the title to prove that to me. That right there, that's the, if you want to summarize what Boston is, that right there. I don't got time to give a fuck. That's what everyone wants to talk about, us being rude, but we just don't got time.
Yes,
and for Jalen, like, he's just so good. Enamored. I'm enamored with him because 7 years of watching those two grow up. Again, just grow up and become men, find their way, and getting to their peak together. It's a beautiful thing to see. It's what everyone wants in sports. It's why we follow these people year in, year out. Yeah, we follow the front of the jersey, but we care about the people that have names in the back of the jersey too. And to have those two on there, they are the connection to the 08 team. They're more the connection to the 80s teams to me, because this 08 was instant gratification. We got that 1 year. We thought we would have won a couple titles until KG jacked his knee up in Utah, and then our window kind of got shut thanks to LeBron in Miami, right? But this team connects me truly to that Celtics history that we hear about, with just constant winning, constant success. And now, with it being tougher to win a title more than ever because the talent is so far and widespread, and just how good this league is now, to get one now, just it's sweet. And so, like, I just want to enjoy it, and just, 0 and 7 are going up in the rafters, man. That it's certified. Like, they're going up in the rafters, and they're going to be the two greatest Celtics of my lifetime, bar none.
There's no better way to end it right there, man. It's a beautiful thing. Thanks again, Ben. Man, this really was like reminiscent of the Celtics days. I loved it. We could talk Celtics forever. We've done it for years. The same way we saw JT and JB grew up, we have grown up doing this. So, but I will say one last name, and I would like you to associate with F.A. Osifo is the last name on my list. Shout out to the Pink Martini game, my brother. You should be here with us, but we couldn't have you on today.
Couldn't have you on. No 3-man weave today. No. We had to just run our 2-man game on this. While we stomp on the Lakers' grave, while they I just put in my my resume to be the film guy for JJ Redick. Now that I'm on a podcast, I'm going to send him this reel. I think that'll help me get the job. So thank you, Andy. You might see me out in LA now, but it's Celtic green, baby.
Yes, sir.
18's here.
Shout out to my brother E, man. I know you going through it, but hey, man, we're just here to help you cope a little bit. And just know,
between this and Drake, this and Drake, he's just down bad.
I don't even want to mention Drake. That's a whole nother hour podcast, right?
We'll talk about that later.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, everybody, thanks for tapping in. Like I said, man, this is a victory lap episode. Only Celtics. If you don't like it, we don't give a damn, bro, because we the NBA champions, bro. Until next time, man, I'll see y'all. Peace.